Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling. When you revisit a world, maybe a movie or a show, that you feel like you know completely, like you've seen it a million times. But then what if you scratch the surface and find all these hidden layers, things you never noticed, surprising details, inspirations you wouldn't expect? That's what we're doing today. Welcome to the deep dive. We're not just skimming the surface here, we're really digging in. And today, our focus is squarely on Stranger Things. Using the amazing info you've shared, we're going deep. We want to unearth the secrets, the unexpected bits that make this show such a phenomenon. What makes Hawkins tick? Why do we care so much? Let's find out.
Exactly. And our mission here really is to show how all these pieces came together. The meticulous planning, yes, but also the surprising inspirations, the genuine passion. It all converge to create this huge cultural thing. And these aren't just, trivia points. These are insights. Insights into why it works so well, why it feels so authentic, why it has this lasting appeal. It's about the craftsmanship, really. Every little detail, from like Steve's hair to the sound that Demogorgon makes, it was all chosen for a reason, to pull you in. We're looking at the artistry behind it all.
Okay, let's start with that immersion. Hawkins, Indiana. It feels so real, so lived in when you watch the show. How much of that is, an actual place versus just built on a set somewhere?
That's a great question, because that feeling of authenticity, it's totally key. And you'd probably be surprised how much of Hawkins is grounded in actual reality. It's not all sound stages, not by a long shot. The Duffers really committed to that from the start. They knew, I think, that for the weird stuff, the upside down stuff, to really hit home, the everyday world had to feel completely, utterly believable.
That makes so much sense. The contrast works better when the normal feels genuinely normal, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, take the Byers house. That place is so central, especially early on. The Christmas lights, everything. That's not just a set piece, is it?
No way. It's a real house in Fayetteville, Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's actually become kind of a pilgrimage site for fans. People go there. Sometimes they even put up Christmas lights, like Joyce did.
That's amazing and kind of poignant.
It really is. The production team found this place that just felt right. That rustic, lived-in vibe, it anchors the whole story, that vulnerability against the chaos.
And that commitment, like you said, it goes beyond the big locations. Even tiny background details feel right. Like the Burger King in Hawkins. Seems like a small thing, but it adds to the 80s feel.
Oh, absolutely crucial. That wasn't random. Including a recognizable chain like Burger King, well, that instantly grounds the town. Those places were everywhere in the 80s. It's not just somewhere to eat. It's like a landmark of the era. It just helps cement that feeling that, yeah, you're definitely in the 1980s. It's part of that cultural time capsule.
Speaking of 80s icons, Hopper's truck, that brown SUV, it just is Hopper,
Mm-hmm. The 1980 Chevy K5 Blazer. Classic.
So that was a deliberate choice, too.
Oh, absolutely. The K5 Blazer was super popular back then, especially in smaller towns. It screams 80s practicality. But more than that, it fits Hopper perfectly. It's rugged, dependable, no frills. Just like him. It's not just a truck, it's like part of his character's uniform. The American hero, the American truck.
Okay, so details like cars are spot on. But what about the really big set pieces? I mean, Starcourt Mall in Season 3, that looked enormous. Surely that was mostly a set.
You'd think so, right? But this is where their commitment to real locations gets wild. Starcourt wasn't built from scratch. It was actually a real abandoned mall.
Yeah.
Gwinnett Place Mall in Georgia.
No way, they used an abandoned mall.
They went in, completely renovated sections of it, redressed everything to look like a vibrant, perfect 1980s mall. All the storefronts, the neon, the tiles, meticulous detail. It became this living, breathing character, a symbol of 80s excess, which makes what happens there later even more impactful. Taking this relic and bringing it back to life just for the show, incredible effort.
Wow. So they find these real places. What about the darker side, like the Creel house in Season 4? That place was genuinely creepy. Was that real too?
Yep, another real location. That ominous Gothic mansion. It's a real historic home in Rome, Georgia.
Seriously?
Seriously. They chose it specifically for that look. That grand, slightly decaying Gothic vibe. It fit Vecna's story perfectly with minimal set dressing needed. Sometimes the real world provides the best, most unsettling backdrops. The history of a place adds layers.
That attention to detail, it carries through to the personal spaces too, right? Like Eleven's bedroom or Will's Castle Byers Fort. They feel so specific to the characters.
Definitely. They didn't just throw some 80s stuff in a room for 11. They researched typical kids' bedrooms from that era, the wallpaper, the specific toys you might see, the furniture styles. It all adds up to create this sense of attempted normalcy for her.
And Castle Byers?
I wasn't built in the studio. They actually constructed it out in a real forest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when Will's out there hiding, drawing,
Mm-hmm.
it feels genuine. That authenticity makes his vulnerability real. These spaces matter emotionally.
And what about character props that define them? Like Max's skateboard. It's not just transport, it feels like part of who she is.
It absolutely is. And again, meticulously chosen. It's not just any skateboard. It's accurate to mid-80s skate culture. The board design, the trucks, the wheels, all correct for the period.
But it's more than just accuracy, isn't it?
Oh, totally. It's a symbol for her. She arrives as the outsider.
Yeah.
Right. The skateboard is her independence, her freedom, her way of moving through this new, complicated world. It tells you so much about her rebellious spirit without her saying a word.
Even the younger characters get this treatment. Erica Sinclair loving My Little Pony. That felt very real for an 80s kid.
Mm-hmm. It was a deliberate nod. My Little Pony was huge back then for young girls. It's that touch of authentic childhood innocence. It grounds her character, reminds you she's still a kid, even with all the sass. Amidst all the darkness, there's still room for ponies.
And Will's art supplies, given how important his drawings become, were those authentic too?
Yep, down to the specific brands of colored pencils and markers that would have been available then. The props team really dug into getting those details right. It just adds another layer to that visual authenticity, reinforcing the period setting constantly, but subtly.
So the visual world is incredibly grounded in the 80s reality.
Mhm.
But then there's this whole other layer, this deeper lore, right? Especially the Dungeons and Dragons connection.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is how they weave that fantasy game lore into their sci-fi horror. It's not just window dressing. It informs the threats, the characters, everything. They clearly loved playing D&D.
You see it right away in season 1 with the Demogorgon. That name isn't random, is it?
Not at all. The Demogorgon is lifted straight from Dungeons and Dragons. In the game, it's this incredibly powerful two-headed demon prince. So for anyone who knew D&D, naming the monster that immediately told them, this thing is bad news. It's powerful, chaotic, a major threat. It's a smart shortcut.
And that continues with Eddie Munson's D&D group, the Hellfire Club. That name seems loaded with meaning.
Oh, it's brilliantly layered. First, it's a direct reference to an actual D&D adventure module from the 80s.
Okay.
But it also references the Hellfire Club from Marvel's X-Men comics, another geeky homage.
Right.
And then, crucially, the name plays right into the satanic panic themes of that season. In the 80s, there was this real moral panic about D&D and heavy metal being linked to, like, devil worship, so calling the club Hellfire. It perfectly sets up the town's fearful reaction to Eddie and his friends. It's an homage and a plot device rolled into one. Super clever.
And the main villain pulling the strings from season 2 onwards, the Mind Flayer, also D&D.
Yep, another direct lift. In D&D, Mind Flayers are these insidious psychic monsters known for controlling minds, often through parasitic means. So naming the big bad that immediately signals its nature. It's a manipulator, a puppet master pulling strings from the shadows, not just some brute force monster. It hints at its intelligence and grand plan.
Okay, so D&D is a huge inspiration. But I read somewhere that the look of the Upside Down itself, that creepy, decaying vibe, had a really unexpected source.
This is one of my favorite bits of trivia.
Yeah.
Yes, while it clearly draws on horror tropes, the Duffers have said a key visual inspiration for the misty, desolate, sort of score-filled look was the look of the forests in the 1988 film Gorillas in the Mist.
Get out! The Diane Fossey movie.
The very same. It sounds bizarre, right?
Yeah.
But they liked that atmospheric, damp, slightly otherworldly quality of the jungle environments in that film and adapted it for the Upside Down. It just shows how inspiration can come from anywhere, mixing genres to create something unique and unsettling.
Okay, let's talk about the people. The characters. They're the heart of the show, right? That's why we care. And so many iconic looks and moments come from specific choices.
Absolutely. The connection we feel is paramount.
Take 11. Her name is just perfect now. But was she always going to be 11? I heard they considered number 12.
They did. It was a serious contender.
Yeah.
Number 12. But ultimately, they felt 11 just had a more mysterious ring to it, more unique.
Yeah, it does.
But it fits her perfectly, doesn't it? That enigmatic quality, her strange origins. It was a small choice, maybe, but the right one.
And Millie Bobby Brown shaving her head for the role, that was a huge commitment for someone so young.
Incredible commitment. She was only 11 herself at the time.
Yeah.
But she did it. No wig.
Wow.
And that look became instantly iconic. It symbolized everything, her past trauma, her uniqueness, her power, her vulnerability. Just a powerful visual statement.
Then there's Will Byers and his bowl cut. It's become a bit of a meme, hasn't it? Was that on purpose?
Oh, totally on purpose. It wasn't meant to be the cool haircut. The Duffers based it on their own childhood haircuts.
Ah, really?
Yeah, and it works for Will, right? It emphasizes that he's maybe a bit more awkward, more sensitive, the artistic one. And it definitely screams 80s kid. It helps define him visually.
What I find really amazing is how they handled Gaten Matarazzo's condition, cleidocranial dysplasia. They wrote it into Dustin's character.
Yes, and that was such a positive and frankly important choice. Gaten has been very open about his condition, which affects bone and teeth development. Instead of trying to hide it, the Duffers embraced it. It explains Dustin's lisp in the early seasons, his lack of front teeth initially.
It makes him feel more real.
Exactly. It adds authenticity, vulnerability, and it's great representation on screen. It just makes Dustin even more lovable.
Okay, we have to talk about Steve Harrington's hair. It's practically a character in itself.
Oh, the hair. It absolutely is that perfectly coiffed, giant volume.
Yeah.
It became this running gag, but also something fans adored.
It's so perfectly 80s cool kid.
Right. It was a direct nod to those big hairstyles that were everywhere then. It visually established his initial persona, the popular, maybe slightly arrogant guy. The fact that even his hair has a character arc is kind of amazing. It shows how detailed that character design was.
Thinking about villains, Vecna in season 4 was terrifying. But he wasn't always called Vecna, was he?
No, during development, he had other potential names. Things like the Mind Flayer's General or just the General.
Okay.
More functional names.
Okay.
But they landed on Vecna, which again is a deep D&D reference to a powerful undead lich, a wizard who achieved immortality.
Ah, another D&D connection.
Exactly. It gives him that instant weight, that history within the show's established lore. It makes him feel more ancient and ominous than just the General.
And bringing Vecna to life physically. Jamie Campbell Bower spent hours in makeup, right? Why go practical instead of all CGI?
It was a massive undertaking, like 7 or 8 hours in the chair for Jamie. That suit, designed by Barry Gower, who did amazing work on Game of Thrones too, was incredibly complex and heavy.
Wow.
But the Duffers believe in practical effects for horror when possible. Having a real, physical Vecna on set, it makes his movements genuinely unsettling. And crucially, it gives the other actors something tangible to react to. That fear feels more real when the monster is actually there. It creates a different kind of visceral horror.
That makes sense. It feels more grounded somehow.
Even when it's a monster.
Now, connecting this all together, the casting choices were also key, weren't they? Not just finding good actors, but finding actors who brought their own 80s history.
Yes. So you look at the bigger picture, the casting added these incredible layers of authenticity and nostalgia. It was a very deliberate strategy, speaking directly to the generation who grew up on those 80s films.
Like casting Winona Ryder as Joyce, that felt like a masterstroke from day one.
Absolutely. Winona Ryder was the 80s, cinematically speaking. Beetlejuice, Heathers, Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
She was iconic. So casting her immediately gave the show this authentic 80s credibility. Her presence alone was like a stamp of approval, signaling they understood the era. And then her performance was just phenomenal.
And then Sean Astin as Bob Newby in season 2. That felt like such a perfect wink to the audience.
Oh, it's fantastic. Sean Astin is Mikey from The Goonies, a film that's clearly a massive inspiration for Stranger Things.
Yeah, the whole kid adventure vibe.
Exactly. So casting him created this wonderful meta connection, and then giving Bob that heroic sacrifice moment, it echoed the bravery of The Goonies. It was just chef's kiss. Perfect casting.
The show also seemed to adapt based on who popped on screen. Erica Sinclair, Lucas's sister, played by Priya Ferguson. She wasn't meant to be such a big character initially, was she?
No, she was originally a pretty minor recurring role, but Priya Ferguson was just electric. Her comedic timing, her sass. Yeah. She stole every scene she was in.
She really did. You can't spell America without Erica.
Exactly. Fans loved her instantly. So the Duffers, very smartly, saw that and significantly expanded her role in later seasons. It shows they were responsive, willing to let the show evolve organically based on what was working so well. She became a core part of the group.
And speaking of standout performances in later seasons, Joseph Quinn as Eddie Munson. That guitar solo on the Upside Down, was that really him playing?
It genuinely was, that epic master of puppets solo. Joseph Quinn learned and performed a huge chunk of it himself.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah, he put in hours practicing. Apparently the crew was super impressed. It just adds so much to the scene's power and authenticity, knowing it's really him shredding up there. It makes Eddie's big heroic moment even more impactful, real dedication from the actor.
Okay, let's shift to how they actually created the supernatural stuff, the effects, the sounds, because some of that is just chilling. How do they make it feel so real?
That's where the magic, or maybe the science, comes in. The sound design especially is incredibly clever.
Like the Demogorgon's roar, it's terrifying. How do you even create a sound like that?
Well, it's not just one sound, it's a blend. They took various real animal sounds, things like a tiger's snarl, but also, get this, the cries of a baby seal.
Baby seal cries. Seriously.
Seriously, they layered them, distorted them, manipulated the pitch. The idea is to mix something predatory with something vulnerable but unsettling. It creates this sound that feels both alien and somehow primal, tapping into deep-seated fears. It's not just noise, it's psychologically crafted terror. Pretty brilliant.
And Eleven's nose bleed when she uses her powers. Such a simple, effective visual. How'd they do that consistently?
That's mostly good old-fashioned practical effects. Usually it's a small blood packet hidden near her nostril, or sometimes a very fine tube that releases the fake blood on cue.
Ah, simple but effective.
Exactly. No need for complicated CGI. It looks realistic, and it gives Millie Bobby Brown something physical to react to, making her performance of Strating feel more visceral.
And Dustin's pet, Dart, in Season 2, the little demodog, that felt very real when he interacted with it.
Yeah, Dart was a great mix of techniques, especially in its smaller forms, like the polywog stage. It was brought to life mainly with practical puppetry and animatronics.
So Gaten Matarazzo was actually holding something.
Often, yes. Interacting with a physical puppet makes the actor's performance much more believable than reacting to, like, a tennis ball on a stick. It helps build that tangible connection between Dustin and Dart, which makes the later turns more heartbreaking. As Dart got bigger, they blended in more CGI, but that practical base was key.
Even the props, like Nancy's guns, they look very real when she's handling them.
That's because sometimes they are real, just decommissioned firearms.
Really?
Yeah, obviously, with extremely strict safety protocols. But using a prop with the actual weight and feel of a real gun helps the actor's performance look much more authentic. How they hold it, how they move with it, it adds realism.
And Dustin's inventions, Cerebro, the proton pack, they look like something a clever kid could actually cobble together in the 80s.
That was the goal. The props department worked hard to make them look conceptually functional. Like, they look like they could work, even if they don't in reality. Lots of wires, switches, bits of old electronics. They feel plausible, reinforcing that DIY ingenuity the kids have. It makes their problem-solving feel grounded.
And beyond the props and creatures, the overall visual style was set right from the start, wasn't it? Thinking about the opening title.
Oh yeah, that opening sequence is iconic for a reason.
The glowing red letters forming against the black.
Pure 80s homage. It was specifically designed to mimic the title cards and typography of 80s horror and sci-fi films. Stephen King adaptations, John Carpenter movies.
You can totally see that.
Right. The font, the slow reveal, the synth score underneath. It immediately tells you what kind of world you're entering. It sets the tone perfectly before you even see a character. Masterful branding, really.
So, thinking about the show's journey, it's this massive global thing now. But it didn't start that way, did it? How did this vision, which seems so clear now, actually become such a phenomenon?
Yeah, it's a great question because the journey itself is pretty remarkable. It wasn't an overnight guaranteed success. It raises questions about how vision, even when doubted, can break through.
Because the Duffer Brothers weren't big names before this, right?
Not at all. They were relatively unknown filmmakers. They'd done a small feature written for TV, but Stranger Things was a huge leap. And their pitch, originally called Montauk, was apparently rejected all over town. Like over a dozen networks passed on it.
Wow, over a dozen.
Yeah, they didn't get the genre blend, or maybe didn't think it would find an audience. It was Netflix that finally took the gamble, a gamble that obviously paid off massively.
And here's something even wilder I read. Netflix originally only planned for it to be one season, a limited series.
It's true. Can you even imagine? The initial plan was for a self-contained story, beginning, middle, end, done.
That's crazy to think about now.
Totally. But the reaction was just immediate and huge. Global fan base, critical acclaim. Netflix quickly realized they had lightning in a bottle and greenlit more seasons. It fundamentally changed the show, allowing the world and characters to grow way beyond that original concept. Thank goodness they did.
And to get that cinematic look from the start, Season 1 must have had a decent budget.
It did. Reports put it around $6 million per episode for Season 1.
Okay, that's substantial.
Yeah, and that investment shows. It allowed for the quality practical effects, the visual effects, the detailed period recreation. It let them establish that high production value right out of the gate, setting the standard.
The creators also seemed really good at engaging fans with little details, like the episode titles in Season 2. They were all nods to other things, weren't they?
Oh yeah, very clever. Lots of titles were direct allusions to 80s movies or pop culture. Mad Max, obviously. Trick or Treat Freak. The Pollywog hinting at Kremlins, maybe?
Little Easter eggs.
Exactly. Little rewards for fans who caught the references, deepening that connection to the 80s nostalgia. It makes watching more fun, more interactive.
And they weren't afraid to break format. Season 4 had some incredibly long episodes. Dear Billy was practically a movie.
It really was, like 1 hour and 38 minutes long.
Why so long?
It was a deliberate choice to give that story, especially Max's story, the space it needed to build the suspense, the emotion, let it breathe. It showed they prioritized narrative impact over sticking to a standard TV episode length. Bold storytelling.
I also heard the Duffers gave the young cast actual 80s movie homework before Season 1.
Yes, they had them watch films like E.T., The Goonies, Stand By Me, Poltergeist.
The classics.
The absolute classic. It wasn't just for fun, it was to help them understand the tone, that mix of wonder, friendship, and real fear. And to get the character dynamics, the cultural feel of being a kid in the 80s. Clearly worked, they captured it perfectly.
And even the plot points sometimes echoed the era, like the Russian key device in Season 3. That felt very Cold War.
Yeah. While it's fictional, the whole concept of the Russians building this secret high-tech device to open a portal, it taps right into that real-life Cold War paranoia of the 80s. Secret labs, hidden agendas, advanced tech. It fit the era's anxieties perfectly, adding another layer of period-accurate tension to the sci-fi plot.
So, looking at the legacy, Stranger Things isn't just a show anymore. It actively shapes culture, doesn't it? Especially with music.
It's actually kind of unprecedented how much impact it's had, particularly bringing older music back into the spotlight.
The prime example has to be Kate Bush. Running Up That Hill, that was just mind-blowing.
Absolutely phenomenal. A song from 1985 used so powerfully in Max's storyline in Season 4.
It literally saved her life in the show.
Right, and then boom, the song explodes. Tops charts worldwide. #1 in the UK, top 5 in the US. Success it never saw the first time around.
Decades later.
Decades later. It just showed the incredible power the show has to reintroduce classic art to a whole new generation, create a massive cultural moment. Just stunning.
And it created its own viral moments too, like Dustin and Susie singing the Never-Ending Story theme.
Oh, that scene, so unexpected, so charming.
Turn around, look at what you see.
Exactly. It was scripted, but Gaten Matarazzo and Gabriele Pizzolo just nailed it. That earnestness, the slight awkwardness, it was pure joy. It broke the tension, went viral, and just reminded everyone how much heart the show has, even amidst the monsters. Became an instant classic moment.
We also have to mention Eggos. Eleven's love for Eggo waffles became such a defining, relatable trait.
A simple detail, but perfect. Eggos are real, they were popular, and for 11 they represented comfort, normalcy, something simple and good in her chaotic life. It grounded her character, made her feel more human despite her powers. Just a brilliant little touch.
And Max's headphones in Season 4 weren't just a prop. The music, Kate Bush again, was integral.
Totally integral. The Walkman, the headphones, the specific 80s songs. It was her armor, her escape, her connection to herself while dealing with trauma. It powerfully showed how music can be a lifeline, grounding her in the period while also highlighting that universal coping mechanism. The song choice was everything there.
The show's influence even bled into fashion and merch. The Hellfire Club t-shirt was everywhere.
Oh yeah, and that design, pure 80s heavy metal aesthetic, the font, the graphics, it looked exactly like a band shirt from that era.
Right.
Which, again, connects back to the Satanic Panic theme. It visually reinforces that outsider, slightly dangerous image the club had in the eyes of Hawkins' mainstream, style-reinforcing story.
And Eddie's guitar itself, authentic too.
You bet. The model he plays is one that would have been popular with aspiring metal guitarists back then. Props department nailed it again. That commitment to authentic detail, even for instruments, makes characters like Eddie feel completely believable to people who know that world.
And the show's popularity isn't just talk. Season 4 broke streaming records, right?
Smashed them. When Season 4 dropped, it racked up over 335 million hours viewed globally in just its first 3 days.
Wow, 335 million hours?
Insane numbers. It just proved its status as a true global phenomenon, capable of capturing the world's attention like few things can anymore. Massive, dedicated fan base.
And now we know season 5 will be the end. Netflix confirmed it's the final season.
That's the official word. The Duffer Brothers have said they have a definitive ending plan.
Yeah.
Which is good, right? For a story this complex, it promises an epic conclusion, hopefully tying everything together and giving fans a satisfying resolution after all this time. The anticipation is huge.
So, wrapping this up, when you dive deep like this, you really see the incredible layers in Stranger Things. It's not just one thing, it's the authentic 80s details, from cars to toys. It's the clever use of D&D lore. It's the casting, the music, the practical effects. Every choice feels deliberate.
Absolutely. This deep dive, I think, shows it's not just good storytelling. It's that, plus this unbelievable dedication to authenticity, the smart weaving of references, and this clear passion project feel. It reveals the thoughtful, meticulous process behind why it resonates so deeply. It's not just trivia. It's understanding the craft that made it a cultural touchstone.
So for you listening, now that you know about the real Byers house or the sound of a Demogorgon or the inspiration from Gorillas in the Mist, does it change how you see the show? Does it make you appreciate the Upside Down or Hawkins or even Steve's hair a little bit more? And maybe it makes you wonder what other shows, films, books that you love might have these hidden depths? What could you discover if you decide to do your own deep dive? Keep looking closer, there's always more to find.